September 15th, 1944. The banks of the Moselle River, France. 6:45 hours. The morning mist clings to the vineyards like a shroud. In a muddy foxhole concealed beneath a lattice of ivy and rot, Obergefreiter Heinrich Weber adjusts the focus on his Zeiss scope. His breath comes in shallow, white puffs. He's been waiting 3 hours for a target worthy of the 7.92mm round chambered in his Mauser Kar-98K. Through the optics, the American lines appear deceptively quiet. Then, movement. Down in the valley, a convoy of American trucks is grinding its way along a dirt road. It's a bold move, almost arrogant, moving armor in broad daylight within range of the German 88s across the river. Heinrich scans the vehicles. Shermans, half-tracks, and there, near the lead, a command jeep. Range, Heinrich whispers, not taking his eye off the glass. Beside him, his spotter, a nervous boy named Lucas. Raises his binoculars. 400 meters. Wind is negligible. Heinrich, look at the passenger. Heinrich shifts the crosshairs. Standing in the passenger seat of the Jeep, gripping the windshield frame, is an officer. The glint of silver stars on his helmet is unmistakable, even at this distance. A general. It's a target of opportunity that could earn Heinrich an Iron Cross, or at least a warm meal. "I have him," Heinrich murmurs. He exhales, letting his heart rate settle. The crosshair dances slightly, then locks onto the officer's chest. He squeezes the trigger. Crack! The rifle kicks into his shoulder. Heinrich cycles the bolt instinctively, ejecting the brass casing, and brings his eye back to the scope to confirm the kill. He expects to see the body slumped over the hood, the panic of the driver, the spray of blood. Instead, he sees something that defies physics. The general hasn't fallen. He hasn't screamed. Instead, he has wilted. Where the bullet struck the chest, there is no blood. There is a jagged black hole, and from this hole, the general is losing his shape. His broad shoulders sag inward. His head lolls to the side, not with the weight of death, but like a piece of wet laundry. Within seconds, the imposing figure of the American commander has folded in on itself, flapping loosely in the wind. "Did you miss?" Lucas asks, his voice trembling with confusion. "I hit him," Heinrich hisses, staring in disbelief. "I hit him center mass, but he is melting." Down in the valley, the Jeep doesn't speed up. The driver doesn't dive for cover. He simply reaches over, grabs the deflated skin of the general by the helmet, and shoves the entire crumpled mass onto the floorboard. Heinrich lowers his rifle. He looks at Lucas. For the first time in the war, the sniper looks terrified. "What kind of men are we fighting?" he whispers. They do not bleed. 2 miles west, 23rd Headquarters Special Troops Encampment. 7:15 hours. God damn it! That's the 3rd General Patton we've lost this week. Sergeant Bill Blass, a man who just 2 years ago was sketching fashion models for a magazine in Manhattan, throws his wrench into the mud. He stands over the corpse of the inflatable decoy. It lies on the grass like a discarded pool toy, a neat 8mm hole punched through the vulcanized rubber chest. This is the 603rd Camouflage Engineers, the visual arm of the 23rd Headquarters Special Troops, better known to history as the Ghost Army. They are not infantrymen. They are artists, set designers, architects, and sound engineers recruited from art schools in New York and Philadelphia. Their mission is not to fight the enemy, but to deceive them, to exist where no army exists, to hold the line with air and paint. Private Arthur Shilstone. A young watercolorist from New Jersey walks over with a patch kit and a can of rubber cement. "Sniper?" "Sniper," Blass grunts. "Clean shot. Ruined the valve. We have to patch him up and reinflate, before the spotter plane comes over at 0800. If the Krauts see a flak general, the gig is up. The scene around them is a surrealist painting come to life. Naked eye from a mile away, it looks like an armored division preparing for a massive assault. There are rows of M4 Sherman tanks, 2.5-ton trucks, and artillery pieces aimed at the German lines. But up close, the illusion shatters. A soldier lifts a 30-ton Sherman tank with one hand to retrieve a dropped cigarette lighter. Another man is painting mud onto the pristine rubber treads of a half-track using a mixture of dirt and motor oil. The artillery is made of wood and sewage pipes. The steel armor ripples in the breeze. Listen up! Lieutenant Colonel Reeder's voice cuts through the camp. Intel says the Germans are buying it. They've moved 2 panzer divisions to the river crossing to counter us. That means the real 90th Division can cross unopposed 10 miles south. He kicks the tire of an inflatable truck. It makes a hollow thwack sound. But that sniper is getting dialed in, Reeder warns. They know something is here. They just don't know it's a carnival. Tonight, we turn up the volume. I want the Sonic Boys on the line by dusk. If they can't see us clearly, let's make sure they can hear us coming. Blass applies the glue to the general's chest, pressing the rubber patch down hard. He looks at the tank next to him. It's imperfect. The turret sags slightly to the left. To an artist's eye, it's a flaw. To a German observer, it's a threat. All right, General. Blass mutters to the rubber pile. Let's get you back on your feet. You've got a war to fake. As the sun rises higher, the compressor engines roar to life. Slowly, shakily, the Phantom Army begins to rise from the grass. The illusion holds, but as night approaches, the visual trickery will lose its power. That is when the war of sound begins, a psychological assault that will make the Germans believe they are about to be crushed by an iron fist that is actually nothing but wind. September 15th, 1944, German Forward Listening Post, Sector 4, 22:30 hours. The darkness is absolute. The moon is obscured by heavy cloud cover, rendering the German sniper scopes useless. Now, the war is fought with ears. Lieutenant Kessler presses the headset of his field telephone tight against his skull. He signals for his men to stop breathing. Listen, he whispers. At first, it is faint, a low rhythmic thrumming carried on the wind from the American lines. But within minutes, it grows. It is the distinctive, terrifying squeal of ungreased tank treads. Then comes the heavy guttural roar of radial engines. Not 1, not 10. Panzers. Kessler hisses into the radio mouthpiece. Heavy armor column. Moving into position at grid reference 34-8. I can hear the gear shifts. It sounds like an entire armored division. Then, a voice cuts through the mechanical roar. It is distant, but clear enough to be understood by anyone who speaks English. God damn it, get that truck out of the mud. Move it. Move it. Then the sound of metal striking metal, the unmistakable clang of a pontoon bridge being assembled. Kessler's face drains of color. The Americans aren't just holding the line, they are preparing to cross. If a heavy armored division crosses the river tonight, the German flank will collapse. Artillery, Kessler screams into the radio. Fire mission, grid 34-8, concentration, destroy them while they are bridging. 3 miles away, the German 105mm batteries roar to life. Shells whistle overhead, slamming into the American position. The earth shakes. Trees are splintered. The night sky lights up with explosions, churning the designated grid square into a cratered wasteland. Kessler listens with grim satisfaction as the explosions drown out the tank engines. He has caught them in the open. 1 mile south, the source of the sound, 22:35 hours. Turn down the gain on Channel 2. You're clipping the amps. Technical Sergeant Dick Syracuse isn't inside a tank. He is sitting in the back of a specialized M3 half-track, hunched over a bank of glowing vacuum tubes and spinning spools of wire. This is the sonic company of the Ghost Army, and they are currently putting on the loudest radio drama in history. Mounted on the back of the half-track are massive, 500-pound speakers aimed directly at the German lines. These aren't standard PA systems. They are high-fidelity monsters, capable of projecting sound up to 15 miles away with terrifying clarity. They're buying it, Syracuse grins, watching the German artillery shells pound the empty woods a mile to their north. Look at those fireworks. They're wasting tons of ammo on a bunch of pine trees. The technology in front of him is state-of-the-art. In 1944, magnetic tape doesn't exist yet. Instead, they use wire recorders, spools of hair-thin steel wire that hold the recorded sounds of war. Syracuse plays the instrument like a maestro. He has a library of wire spools recorded at Fort Knox. Track A, medium tank column on gravel road. Track B, heavy truck convoy in mud. Track C, infantry building pontoon bridge. He doesn't just play a loop, he mixes them. Fade out the tanks, Lieutenant Colonel Reeder orders from the passenger seat. Bring up the sergeant swearing track. Make it sound like they're bogged down. Syracuse adjusts the dials. Through the massive speakers, the roar of engines dies down, replaced by the orchestrated chaos of stalled trucks and angry men. To the Germans, the narrative is perfect. The tanks stopped because the trucks got stuck. The story fits the sound. "This is dangerous, Colonel," Syracuse shouts over the din of his own speakers. "If they triangulate this sound, the next shell lands on us." "That's the job, Sergeant," Reeder replies, lighting a cigar. "Every shell they fire at these speakers is a shell that doesn't hit the real boys crossing at Metz." Suddenly, the ground shakes violently. A German 105mm shell lands 200 yards to their left, spraying dirt and shrapnel against the side of the half-track. The needle on the wire recorder jumps. "Too close," Syracuse yells. "Shift position," Reeder commands. "Mobile scenario. Drive east, 5 miles an hour. Make the sound move. Make them chase the ghost." The half-track lurches forward. Syracuse keeps the wire spinning. As they drive, he crossfades the audio to track D, tank column moving out. Back in the German listening post, Lieutenant Kessler hears the tanks escaping the artillery barrage and moving east. "Adjust fire," Kessler screams into his radio. "They're moving east. Shift target." The German guns traverse, chasing the sound. Syracuse wipes sweat from his forehead. He is playing a deadly game of cat and mouse, using decibels as bait. He isn't fighting with a rifle. He is fighting with physics and psychology. And tonight, the German army is dancing to his tune. But the deception isn't just about tanks and noise. The Ghost Army knows that German intelligence is thorough. Sound and sight aren't enough. The Germans have spies in the local French villages. They check the trash. They check the shoulder patches. To make the lie complete, the artists have to become actors. And tomorrow morning, Private Arthur Shilstone is going to have to give the performance of his life in a French cafe, knowing that the waitress pouring his coffee might be reporting directly to the SS. September 16, 1944. Café de la Gare, village of Arneville, 09 hours. The coffee is terrible, mostly chicory and burnt grain, but Private Arthur Shilstone sips it as if it were champagne. He leans back in his wrought iron chair, his boots muddy, his uniform unbuttoned at the collar. To the casual observer, he looks like a combat-hardened infantryman taking a break from the slaughter. On his shoulder, freshly sewn just an hour ago by the unit tailor, is a red patch with the letters T.O., the insignia of the 90th Infantry Division, the Tough Hombres, a unit known for heavy fighting and heavy casualties. But Arthur isn't a tough hombre. He is a 22-year-old watercolor artist from New Jersey. His rifle is real, but he has barely fired it. "More wine, monsieur?" The waitress hovers over the table. She is young, with dark hair and eyes that dart nervously around the room. The French resistance has warned them about her. They call her La Souris, the mouse. They suspect her brother is fighting for the Vichy militia. This is the moment. The script calls for loose lips. Arthur looks at the soldier across from him, Sergeant Blass, the fashion illustrator. "Drink up, Bill," Arthur says, pitching his voice just loud enough to carry over the clatter of dishes. "Enjoy it while you can." The colonel says the armor moves out at dusk. "We're crossing the river tonight." Blass nods, playing his part perfectly. "I heard the 6th Armored is linking up with us. That's 400 tanks, Artie. The Krauts won't know what hit them." Arthur sees the waitress pause. She wipes a table, her head tilted slightly toward them. She is memorizing the numbers. 90th Division, 6th Armored, crossing at dusk. Arthur throws a handful of occupation francs onto the table. "Let's go. I have to check the ammo supply for the howitzers." They stand up and walk out into the sunlight. As soon as they turn the corner, out of sight of the cafe windows, Arthur exhales a long, shaky breath. His hands are sweating. "Do you think she bought it?" Arthur whispers. "She's writing it down right now," Blass replies, lighting a cigarette. By noon, that intel will be on a radio to Berlin, the road outside Arneville. 10:30 hours. The deception continues on the road. The atmosphere section of the Ghost Army is hard at work, creating the illusion of massive troop movements. Normally, a convoy of 2 trucks is just 2 trucks. But the Ghost Army has turned driving into a magic trick. Driver Corporal Jack Macy drives a 2.5-ton truck covered in canvas. On the bumper, stenciled in fresh white paint, are the markings of the 6th Armored Division. In the back, under the canvas, there are no troops. There is only Sergeant Syracuse and a cooler of soda. Macy drives the truck slowly through the village square, gears grinding, looking heavy and laden. He drives past the cafe, past the church, and out the east road toward the front. Then, the magic happens. Once out of sight in the woods, Macy floors it. He races a mile loop through a back logging road, circles around the village, and comes back to the starting point. While moving, Syracuse leans out and slaps a magnetic decal over the bumper number. Truck number 402 becomes truck number 403. They drive through the village again. To the spy watching from the church steeple, it looks like an endless column of heavy infantry trucks is pouring into the sector. He counts 10, 20, 50 trucks. He sees the heavy suspension, simulated by Macy riding the brakes to keep the nose down. The spy notes the markings, 6th Armored. Just as the soldier in the cafe said, German Intelligence HQ, Metz Sector, 1300 hours. Oberst Colonel Dietrich stares at the map table. The reports are flooding in, confirming his worst fears. "Sir," an intelligence officer reports, placing a marker on the map. "Human intelligence confirms elements of the 90th Infantry Division in Arneville. We have visual confirmation of shoulder patches. We have reports of a heavy truck column moving east. And the acoustic posts are still picking up tank engines." Dietrich slams his hand on the table. "And the radio traffic. The Signal Battalion reports high-volume encryption coming from that sector. The fist of the telegraph operators matches the 6th Armored Division's signature. This is the final layer of the Ghost Army's masterpiece. Their radio operators aren't just sending gibberish. They are mimicking the specific tapping styles, the fist, of the real operators from the actual divisions. They are playing the part of men who are currently resting safely 20 miles away. It is a pincer movement, Dietrich concludes, his face pale. They are feinting at Metz with the 5th Division, but the killing blow will come from Arneville with this massive armored force. He looks at his reserves. He has the 11th Panzer Division, his last remaining heavy tanks. He was planning to send them south to block the real crossing. "Move the 11th Panzer north," Dietrich orders. "Dig them in opposite Arneville. We must stop that armored column before it crosses the river." Arneville Sector, 1400 hours. Heinrich Weber, the German sniper, is still in his foxhole. He is watching the tree line. He sees the glint of metal. A Sherman tank is poking its nose out of the woods. Then another. Then a line of artillery pieces. He doesn't shoot. There are too many of them. He grabs his radio. They are forming up, tanks in the open, hundreds of them. He doesn't know that the tank he is looking at weighs only 90 pounds. He doesn't know that if he shot it, it would hiss and deflate. He doesn't know that the artillery is a painted log. He only knows what he sees, what he hears, and what the spies have told him. Across the river, the Ghost Army waits. They have no armor. They have no heavy guns. If the 11th Panzer Division attacks them for real, they will be wiped out in 10 minutes. They are protected only by a shield of lies. "Hold fast," Colonel Reeder whispers, watching the German panzers moving into defensive positions across the river, moving away from the real American crossing point. "Keep the speakers loud. Keep the balloons up. Just a few more hours." The sun begins to set. The deception has held for 24 hours. But the most dangerous moment is approaching. The real attack is scheduled for midnight. Until then, the artists have to keep the German army staring at a painting, terrified of a monster that isn't there. September 16th, 1944, ridge overlooking the Moselle. 23:45 hours. The world ends in a flash of white light. Crump, crump, crump. The German 11th Panzer Division, convinced they are facing an imminent armored thrust, unleashes hell. Inside his foxhole, Sergeant Bill Blass curls into a ball, pressing his helmet into the mud. The ground bounces with every impact. Shrapnel winds through the air, shredding the trees and the camouflage netting. "Keep your heads down," Lieutenant Colonel Reeder screams over the roar of the barrage. "Don't fire back. Let them think we're dug in and waiting." This is the hardest order in warfare, to sit under fire and do nothing. The 1,100 men of the Ghost Army are holding a line meant for 30,000. They have 50 caliber machine guns mounted on their half-tracks, but if they fire them, the muzzle flashes will reveal their true numbers. They have to let the Germans believe that the 90th Division is simply disciplining its fire, waiting for the Germans to get closer. 100 yards away, a mortar shell lands directly on top of Company B, a row of inflatable Sherman tanks. Wham! There is no secondary explosion, no cooking off of ammunition, no screaming metal. Instead, the lead tank simply hawks into the air. The shell rips the rubber skin apart. The air rushes out with a sound like a dying whale. Whoosh! And the 30-ton war machine collapses into a sad pile of vulcanized fabric. "We lost a tank," Private Shilstone yells, watching his handiwork disintegrate. "Company B is flat." "Leave it," Blass shouts back. "Stay down." 10 miles south, the real crossing. 11:15 hours. While the earth is being churned to mud at Arnaville, the real 90th Infantry Division is stepping into the water 10 miles downstream. General James Van Fleet stands on the riverbank. He expects resistance. He expects machine gun nests and mortar fire. Instead, there is only the sound of crickets and the distant rolling thunder of artillery far to the north. "They took the bait," Van Fleet whispers, watching his first pontoon boats slide silently across the black water. The German 11th Panzer Division, the iron fist that should have crushed this crossing, is currently pounding a field full of artists and speakers. By the time the German commanders realize their mistake, the Americans will have a bridgehead 3 miles deep. September 17th, 1944, German lines. Arnaville sector, 6 o'clock hours. The sun rises on a smoking wasteland. The artillery barrage has ceased. Now, the German infantry advances to sweep up the survivors of the American armored column. Obergefreiter Heinrich Weber moves cautiously through the mist, his Mauser raised. He expects to find the wrecks of Sherman tanks. He expects to find dead American bodies. He reaches the edge of the clearing. He stops. There are no burning hulks. There are no corpses lying in the grass. Shredded by shrapnel is rubber. Yards and yards of green rubber. Heinrich lowers his rifle. He walks over to a jeep that has been flipped over by a blast. He kicks it. It weighs nothing. It rolls over like a cardboard box. He walks further. He finds the remains of the general he shot 2 days ago. It is a deflated balloon, patched with glue. He looks at the heavy tank tracks in the mud. He follows them. They stop abruptly in the middle of the field, where the bulldozer that made them turned around. "Hans," Heinrich calls out to his squad leader. His voice is hollow. "What is it?" the squad leader asks, stepping into the clearing. Heinrich points to the pile of rubber that was supposed to be a tank battalion. "Ghosts," Heinrich says. "We have been fighting ghosts." From the south, a new sound reaches them. It is not a recording. It is the deep, terrifying rumble of real Sherman tanks, flanking them from the crossing point they left unguarded. The trap has snapped shut. May 1945. End of war in Europe. The 23rd Headquarters Special Troops packed up their balloons, their speakers, and their sonic trucks. They had staged over 20 battlefield deceptions, from Normandy to the Rhine. They are estimated to have saved between 15,000 and 30,000 American lives by drawing fire away from real units. But there were no parades. "You are to tell no one," the officers were told. "This unit never existed. You were never here." The army classified the existence of the Ghost Army as top secret. They feared that if the Russians knew about the technology, they would use it in the next war. So the artists went home. Bill Blass returned to New York and became one of the most famous fashion designers in American history. Ellsworth Kelly became a giant of modern art. Arthur Shilstone became a renowned illustrator. For 50 years, they kept the secret. When friends asked them what they did in the war, they would shrug and say, "Oh, I was in the engineers. I blew things up." They never mentioned that they blew things up with air. It wasn't until 1996 that the mission was declassified. The world finally learned that the terrifying armored columns that broke the Wehrmacht's nerve were actually painted by young men who would rather hold a paintbrush than a rifle. Heinrich Weber, the German sniper, likely never knew the name of the unit that fooled him. He only knew that on a misty morning in France, he shot a general in the heart, and the general refused to die. Today's story is ended. Let's leave your thoughts in the comments below. See you in the next video.